docudrama you are about to witness is one of the most realistic portrayals ever seen. So daring is this production that it has never been scheduled on network television. We feel that this is one of the most important productions you will ever see. This is not a polished Hollywood star-studded feature. It is an honest portrayal of events graphic and shocking and may not be suitable for children. Viewer discretion is advised.
Here's a little song I wrote. I want to sing it note for note. Don't worry. Be happy. Every night we have some trouble. When you worry, you make it double. Don't worry. Be happy. Be happy. You may have to litigate. Don't worry. Be happy.
It is known that hip-hop always copied the image and lifestyle of the Italian mafia. Some would say the mob funded hip-hop, some simply liked the names, or they represented an idea of being rich, successful, powerful, a boss. But on the other hand, some say that the mob doesn't like black people, or the mob refused to let drugs be sold in white neighborhoods, they allowed it in black neighborhoods. It's with this that I start realizing one reason entertainment has romanticized the mob.
I want to sing it note for note. Don't worry. Be happy.
They say the origins of the mob in America can be traced to the ghettos of the late 19th century, where Irish, Italian, and Eastern European Jewish immigrants struggled to survive poverty, overcrowding, and discrimination. These immigrants could get only the most dangerous and low-paying jobs.
Every night we have some trouble.
In the American and Sicilian mafia, a made man is a fully initiated member of the mafia. To become made, an associate first must be Italian or of Italian descent and sponsored by another made man. An inductee will be required to take the oath of omerta, the mafia code of silence and code of honor.
You worry, you make it double.
Al Capone, sometimes known by the nickname Scarface, was allegedly an American gangster. Between 1925 to 1931, Al Capone was the most powerful mob boss in Chicago. His 7-year reign as a crime boss ended when he went to prison at the age of 33. As we can see, we have the number 33 again. As with all other characters, we find the same problem with Al Capone, who wasn't Albert or Alfred. His name was Alphonse Gabriel Capone, an upperclass name. But I question every name they give us for these characters. I'm sure they have just made up his early bio to fool you, as usual. They tell us he was the son of poor Italian immigrants who came to Brooklyn, their parents becoming a barber and a seamstress. Not a chance that is true, and there is zero evidence of it, beyond words. His mother was Ariola and they were from Salerno, but no city is given. But they do give us a clue since they tell us when the family emigrated to the US, they went through Rijeka, Croatia. Which is ridiculous, since that isn't on the way to the US. It is backward from Salerno, since Salerno is on the west coast of Italy, while Rijeka is on the east coast of the Adriatic, up across from Venice. Rijeka has been a huge Phoenician port for thousands of years, becoming a free city of the Habsburgs in 1465. By free city, I mean a city like City of London, which is mainly autonomous. Capone allegedly became boss of the biggest mob in Chicago at age 26. Who believes this crap? The former boss Torrio brought him to Chicago from New York 6 years earlier, and he soon became Torrio's second in his early 20s. Why? He had done nothing exceptional in New York, and his bio is mostly a blank. Are we really supposed to believe there were no older people in Chicago more qualified to be Torrio's second? The story became even more unbelievable. He was a rich guy seen at all the highest places spending lots of money, and again getting his name in the papers as a national celebrity. Real men in charge don't want that kind of publicity, since it just draws attention.
The youthful mob boss was front-page news. He liked being in the limelight. When accused of a crime, he'd call a press conference.
Capone was known as Scarface, of course. But did he really have any scars? Notice the two scars. changed. Now look at the scars in this photo. His scar seems to be changing. The first scar mysteriously grew longer. So once again, did he really have scars? They seem to come and go. The scars are supposed to be on the left side of his face, and that is the left side. You can tell me those were taken before he got slashed. No, the standard history is that he got slashed while working the door at a bar in Coney Island in 1918, making him 19. He is much older than 19 in both of those photos. The whole Scarface thing was a fake to make him seem like a gangster when he was really just another Jewish actor with manicured nails.
Pucker up, boys, because it's time to whistle a brand new tune!
There's a little something going on there, you notice? You guys notice they, seem like a...
What, like a born killer?
Sure, but I'm saying, he seemed like, he's like kind of... Just me? Never mind, forget it.
Another way we can tell the last mugshot is fake is the tag. U.S. Penitentiary Alcatraz 85. There is nothing else on Alcatraz but a penitentiary, so it seems kind of redundant, doesn't it? And there is no date. 85 is his prisoner number. It should have a date. Compared to these. Those are the Anglin brothers, so those are fake as well, but my point is there is no continuity. How do I know those last ones are fake? Because they don't take mugshots with their eyes closed. If your eyes are closed, they retake it. They need eyes for identity. That just proves it again, since his eyes are still closed for the side view. And as we said before, you don't wear hats in your mugshot. These are nothing more than Hollywood profiles. I consider it an acting portfolio, and that gives casting directors an informative overview of your appearance, style, personality, and acting skills. Remember, they made movies about Al Capone.
Actors from Hollywood are coming in because they wanted to play parts based on Capone. Jimmy Cagney was there. The celebrity journalists were all coming in for this and partying with Capone at night before the trial.
Let's go. All I do is work on the automobiles. I don't know what to do with these people. Come on, move. Hands on the wall. Lean on it.
What about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre? Do you think that was real? If your answer is yes, then you're wrong. In the St. Valentine's Day Massacre of 1929, it is said that Al Capone sought to take control by eliminating his rivals in the illegal trades of bootlegging, gambling, and prostitution. This rash of gang violence reached its climax in a garage on the city's north side on February 14, 1929, when 7 men associated with the Irish gangster George Bugs Moran, one of Capone's longtime enemies, were shot to death by several men dressed as policemen. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre, as it was known, remains an unsolved crime and was never officially linked to Capone, but he was generally considered to have been responsible for the murders. Wiki tell us they were lined up against a wall and shot by 4 unknown assailants, some members of the Chicago Police Department allegedly wanting revenge for the killing of a police officer's son. Yeah, right. Let's look at the names of the victims. Albert Kaczmarek, Adam Hare, Albert Weinschenk, Frank and Peter Gusenberg, Reinhard Schwimmer, and John May. Sort of strange names for Irish members of the North Side Gang. All Jewish. Gusenberg is just a slur of Gutenberg, so we have extremely obvious Jewish names, no question. Think actors Steve Guttenberg and David Schwimmer, admitted to being Jewish. But we would say we have photos of the bodies. No, we have photos of bodies, but we do not know if they are dead or if they are these guys. All we see is some guys lying on the ground. That proves nothing. I'd say they added the blood in the scene. Crime scene investigation was in its infancy during the early 1900s. Investigators sometimes walked through pools of blood. This type of behavior drew the eye of criminologists who realized the importance of preserving the integrity of crime scenes. Francis Glessner Lee came up with a solution to better train police officers and coroners. I say that to say, notice the amount of blood on the concrete.
Don't do it.
Now notice the reenactment photo.
Be happy.
It says, the day after the massacre, jury watched police reenact the killings at the crime scene. What happened to all that blood? The next day we see there's no trace of all the blood. A cold winter in February and there are no stains left.
Don't bring everybody down.
The small things such as how they're laying perfectly on their backs. And this guy still has his hat on, as if there was no struggle to live, I find suspicious. I guess they fell back like mannequins. Another thing one might ask, if they were lined up against a wall and shot with machine guns, why is there no blood on the wall?
Don't worry, be happy.
They circled the shots here. In fact, in the February 15, 1929 newspaper, the bullet holes do not match what they show us today.
There's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note.
Pay attention to the words used. The cast of characters, meaning a person in a novel, play, or movie.
The camera boys are all ready, so look sharp. Here he comes.
This is exactly why they made sure Al Capone was the only one to wear an all-white hat. This made it easier for the cameras to spot the actor, and this was very obvious.
That's Al, wearing the big white hat. Seems to be in a hurry, but where he's going, he'll have time and nothing but.
Vincent Turchi, Al Capone's best-known rival. The only known photo of Chicago mob boss Vincent Turchi while alive, real name Ludovico D'Ambrosio. Not sure how you get Vincent Turchi out of that. Here he is after being killed, supposedly. One problem. He looks alive. Just another Hollywood Jew from Actors Equity. In fact, this guy D'Ambrosio was known to be an actor and would have had an IMDb page if they were around back then. He appeared in at least one porn film.
When you worry, you make it double, don't worry.
He also liked to dress as a priest and walk the streets of Chicago, again indicating an actor. I remind you again that all this was happening in the late 1920s, exactly when J. Edgar Hoover was expanding the Bureau of Investigation. Hoover was promoted to director in 1924, and it had 650 employees at the time. He expanded it steadily and rapidly, and by 1943 it had 13,000 employees. That's an increase of 20 times in less than 20 years. Did the US increase in population by 20 times during that time? Or were they preparing for the future? They created all the crime stories on the front page, from Capone, Dillinger, Bonnie, Clyde, and more. So ask yourself, why did Hoover's controllers expand the Bureau of Investigation? Do you think crime in the US was growing 100 times faster than the population? No. Not to be deterred by reality, they constructed it to let Hoover do the only thing he could do to increase his budget, fame, and prestige. He phoned up his buds in Hollywood. With their help, he created a steady stream of fake events using people like Capone and Dillinger to make work for the FBI and increase its budgets.
Landlord say your rent is
Quick side note about the St. Valentine's Massacre. They love to give us clues, since they think we are too stupid to see them. On the wiki page for the event, they admit police suspected the Jewish Purple Gang from Detroit, as well as Al Capone. You have to laugh. The Purple Gang. I guess they were famous for wearing purple Phoenician-dyed silks. Did this Detroit gang also have Viking ships on their flags and rampant lions? But it gets better. If we take the link to the wiki page on the Purple Gang, we find they used a little Jewish navy to carry alcohol over the Detroit River from Canada. The Phoenician Navy. And you thought I had made up the name. We were told the FBI thought the Purple Gang was involved in the Lindbergh baby kidnapping. Except that it was also fake, and the FBI knew it. And then there's this, they also defrauded insurance companies by staging fake accidents. They mean the Purple Gang, not the FBI. But as you can see, it goes both ways. Everyone was faking something back then, and they still are. It just gets bigger and more fantastic each decade.
It's as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. The two towers, a huge explosion now raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way!
At the time of Alphonse Capone's parents, they were from Naples, famous for its Jewish population. Capone's grandfather was a Calabrese, supposedly a pasta maker, but this is just another joke. These people weren't Italian mobsters, they were either cloaked bankers or actors, with the least talented people in the family tapped to play these media parts, as with George Bush.
Those who think that they can say we're only going to have a stimulus package, but let's forget tax relief, underestimate, just making sure you're paying attention. You were.
I know the human being and fish can coexist peacefully.
The responses have got to end in order for us to get the framework, the groundwork, not framework, the groundwork to discuss a framework for peace, to lay the... All right. In my State of the Union, or my speech to the nation, whatever you want to call it, speech to the nation, to give 4,000 hours over the rest of your life of service to America. That's what I asked. I said 4,000 hours. There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Our enemies are innovative and resourceful, and so are we. They never stop thinking about new ways to harm our country and our people, and neither do we.
They never stop thinking about new ways to harm our country and our people, and neither do we.
They put their worst people forward for the cameras to make you think they are incompetent. You never see the people and the families who make the decisions. Thus listen to all the stories with what I have told you in mind. They are all cinematic and unsubstantiated and read like poor fiction. Just a lot of jawing by the usual bad writers in Intel. They know you will believe anything, so there is no continuity, and nothing makes any sense. They give us interviews with people that were script reading or remembering lines, and nothing feels organic.
But this is the finest soup I ever tasted in my life, and give my regards to this place. President of the future, begging for a bowl of soup and for a sandwich. We haven't got no work, we can't get no work, we're looking for work. We can't get no work, but we will by someday in the future. Now, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, if it wasn't for our friend Al Capone roping open this here White House on 935 South State Street, we wouldn't eat.
They filled Capone's story with money, power, and women to captivate us.
What would a woman that fine want in a big, fat, nasty, greasy, fat, stank, bloated, cheesy, backed 12 sandwich-eating bastard.
In 1929, 3 of Capone's men allegedly hatched a plot to overthrow him, but Capone found out and had them shot. The murders made the scene in The Untouchables. But we have no proof or even evidence that this ever happened. The story was first told in a 1931 book by Walter Noble Burns, who also wrote the fictional book The Saga of Billy the Kid. The only eyewitness testimony is provided by Capone's own man, George Meyer, and so it is worthless. It is all just a story the FBI writers made up. We know Capone's conviction was fake, it makes no sense. He made a plea deal for a 2.5-year prison sentence, but we are told the government reneged on the deal, with Capone changing his plea to not guilty. It doesn't work like that. If it did, the government could just trick people into pleading guilty, then tell the jury they had pled guilty previously. Also, we are told all this happened just hours before the trial, leaving Capone's lawyers with no plan of defense. Again, absurd, since the legal system doesn't work like that. Any trial of that sort would be overturned on appeal in about 5 minutes. Capone allegedly arrived at the Atlanta penitentiary at age 33. Of course, he did. But why Atlanta? None of his crimes happened in Atlanta. All the jails in the north were full. Then he was sent to Alcatraz, even further away. Why? Because almost no one could later testify that they never saw him there. It was the perfect place to hide his ghost. Remember, Capone's prisoner number there was 85, so the place was almost, or completely, empty. This is the standard operating procedure in these fakes. Move the high-profile prisoners to someplace no one can report not seeing them. Like in distant states, small rural jails. Doesn't that transfer form look fake? Would you be grinning wildly if you had been transferred to Alcatraz? Maybe he realizes after the mugshot he's going fishing. The criminal history section is also a joke. They would not list arrests and indictments that did not lead to convictions. But of course, they have to pad this thing out, since this is Capone at Alcatraz. His fellow prisoners were mass murderers. If they just listed as one little fake conviction for tax evasion, you might get suspicious. Capone was paroled in 1939, after fake serving just 7 years. He supposedly died of syphilis a few years later. He was convicted at the age of 33 and removed from America in 1947. 8 days after turning 48. Al Capone's wake was held at Philbrook's 1333 Dade Boulevard. Knowing his entire life was scripted, what makes you think his death wasn't? Sure, we see him in a casket, but if they can fake these, then I'm sure they can fake this with their eyes closed, literally. After all, no reporter was allowed to film.
Only a few relatives and friends were present at the funeral. No reporters were allowed to film it.
Let's look at other crime scenes from the so-called mob. Since we can raise doubt, or prove the Capone stories to be just a script, we can use the same clues for any other alleged mob crime. For example, Carmine Galante death photo. Do you really think someone shot up will be able to keep a cigar in his mouth? This is not how dead bodies work. In reality, at the moment of death, all of the muscles in the body relax, a state called primary flaccidity. The body's joints and limbs are flexible. Beginning approximately in the 3rd hour after death, chemical changes within the body cells cause all of the muscles to begin stiffening, known as rigor mortis. So this is a staged photo. We can do this with almost every mob murder and show you it's fake. They promote these Jewish bankers acting as mobsters because it all leads to more money for them and their families. They create mob museums, TV shows, video games, and more. Some of these fake mobsters have transitioned over to Hollywood, such as Tony Sirico, who wants us to believe he was convicted of several crimes and was arrested 28 times, including for disorderly conduct, assault, and robbery, before taking up acting. Yeah, right. Meanwhile, the average person can't even participate on American Idol if he has a criminal record.
Jermaine will be kicked off the show Wednesday night after producers discovered last week that he lied about his criminal history. Jones was arrested twice last year, has outstanding warrants, a violence arrest, and reportedly gave fake names to police both times when he was arrested.
I'm not saying there are no real murders. I'm saying the real has been given their reality by staged events. All of this only indicates the entire mob was faked and formed for more reasons. I've always noticed hip-hop glorified the mob image. Violence and drugs were an important social force driving blacks in the same direction. Remember, Death Row Records was one of many psychological operations based on the mob image. No Limit Records was another, an all-military-based label depicting the mob lifestyle, then heavily promoted. It is known that the movie Scarface was loosely based on a 1932 film of the same name, in which the main character, Tony Comont, is inspired by the infamous Al Capone. I think how everyone I knew gravitated and inspired to live a life like Scarface. Al Capone. When I think about MTV Cribs, I remember how almost every rapper displayed a Scarface poster or movie.
You see what I got on, my favorite movie on Scarface all the time. It's like one of my first movies that I've seen that I can relate to. Like he started from, sort of like I started from nothing, and he made his way to something, you know what I'm saying? I think I watch it like every time I wake up in the morning, I just throw this on. Work right here? Beautiful.
For the most part, we watching, videos.
This is where it all goes down at, this is the den right here. Tried to give it that whole little movie theater lobby effect.
Take me show you my movie theater.
More gangster shit. More Scarface Blast, Tony Montana look.
Look at the TV, big ball of TV. Look over here, see what movies we. Al Pacino got to have a Scarface in the collection.
Sunday Night Sopranos right in this room.
As of 2022, we now know most of the houses were staged or were not the artist's real house.
I said for some reason I feel like some of them motherfuckers is just renting the house to do that shit. And find out some of them was.
So why did they make it a point to show us Scarface? This type of product placement can be a lot more powerful than we realize. Most artists were repeating the Scarface theme for the cameras, which increases sales, while decreasing your mentality. In the documentary by Def Jam, Origins of a Hip-Hop Classic, the Wu-Tang Clan's member describes Scarface as the Bible of hip-hop.
Nigga, that shit was a fucking Bible.
And the film does take on Tony Montana's epic tale in a biblical sense. Evidence of Scarface's influence is still apparent today, with new rappers romanticizing the mob lifestyle. Mesmerized by the rags to riches storyline, getting money the fast way, we know the government has always placed drugs in the community. They gave us Scarface and the rappers from rich parents promoted it.
It's one of the hottest movies ever made. I watched this movie 63 times.
They put drugs in the community and made us believe we shouldn't tell on the people selling it. They made us believe we shouldn't tell on the man that murdered the girl next door. Follow the G-code and leave the criminals in your neighborhood to slowly destroy what's left of it. These Jewish actors such as Al Capone, Lucky Luciano, and John Gotti gave us the culture that we claim is ours. It's time to give it back. Let them keep their prisons.
Drop me off in Harlem. Yeah, good old Harlem. You have your fun under the Harlem sun, so drop me off in Harlem. There's Duke Ellington up in Harlem. Yes, drop me off in Harlem. Yeah, man, beautiful Harlem. Yeah, good old Harlem. You have your fun under the Harlem sun, so drop me off in Harlem. There's Duke Ellington up in Harlem. Way up in Harlem. drop me off in Harlem. Yeah, good old Harlem. You have your fun under the Harlem sun. Drop me off in Harlem. Way up in Harlem.